Alright, let's learn how to saddle stitch. Take a look at the stitching here. You'll notice that the stitch has a diagonal pattern that runs from top to bottom, like this, for every single stitch. Now this is not only on the front side, but also on the back. This is the traditional saddle stitching look that we want. And it not only looks good, but it's also an extremely durable stitch. Something that can only be achieved when stitching by hand. Let me show you how it's done. Alright, in order to saddle stitch, we're going to hold on to our wallet just like this, in this orientation. This is the front, this is the back, and the needle and thread that's coming towards us, facing us, is always going to be called the front needle and thread, and this will be the back. Okay? So we'll take the needle in the front and push it through the next available stitching hole here. Okay? And then when I pull through, I don't want this thread to intertwine with this thread in the back. So I'm going to hold on to it with my hand right here, like this. So this way, they won't intertwine because I want this thread in the back to always sit on top of this thread that came through from the front, okay? So I will push this through the same hole. I'm going to position this needle to sit on top of this thread here. And we're not going to pierce this thread. Careful not to. And in order to check that, I'm going to tug on this thread here. So I'll tug on this thread. It pulls freely, so that means it hasn't been pierced. The other thing you want to make sure is that this needle does not go through this loop like this, because that would mean that this thread is now sitting on top of this needle. We don't want that, so we want this needle to sit on top of this thread, and that's how it looks like right now. So that looks good. So I'll pull this through. I'll reduce slack on both sides, and then I'll tighten. Okay, that's our first saddle stitch. You can see that this thread in the front is now sitting on top of the stitch we just made previously. It's going to start to form that diagonal pattern going up and down. So we'll do one more. Take the front needle, push it through the back. Don't intertwine the threads. So I'll hold on to this like that. I'll take the needle in the back and I'll push it through that same hole, placing it on top of the thread, avoiding piercing it. And I'm going to check that I haven't pierced by tugging on this thread here. And if you do pierce it, you'll see that it's caught and you just need to keep pulling until it becomes unpierced. It's not going under this loop. It's sitting on top of this thread. So we'll pull that through. And then tighten. And that's it. That's our saddle stitch. It's starting to form, and you want to repeat those same exact steps over and over again in order to get a consistent stitch. The things you need to keep in mind are making sure that you don't intertwine these threads back here, and then making sure that you don't pierce this thread. So we tug and make sure it's positioned on top of this thread. It doesn't go through this loop, so it stays down here. And then we want to make sure to give a consistent pressure while tightening. And this is going to give us a consistent looking stitch. You can see that we have this diagonal pattern forming going up and down, which is what we want. Now if you think about it, what we're doing is we're creating a spiraling stitch of two separate threads. And this is what makes saddle stitching so strong. It has two threads running throughout the entire stitch, so that if one of them were to break, there will still be an entirely separate thread that holds everything together. So we're just going to continue our saddle stitch all the way to the last stitching hole, and then I'll show you how to finish the stitch off in the next video. Alright, so I'm tugging on this thread here, and I can see that it's pierced. All you have to do is keep pulling this thread towards you to unpierce it. And there we go. The thread has become unpierced, and now we're free to pull this needle through. Now this could happen quite a bit, so that's why we always tug to check that we haven't pierced the thread.